Hey everybody, welcome back. Corstian cobbled this video together and I scramble on in right back from work. So we're over here at episode whatever we're at. That's the title on StreamYard, but I think it's episode 104.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Wow. There's a lot of great football being played right now.
Mhm.
Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Jaden Daniels continue to surprise
Mhm.
preseason hype and teams that we've been seeing. So, quite amazing actually to see how well things have been going. Of course, Sam, what is like your overall assessment of like the league after 4 weeks?
Um, it's been pretty fun, pretty exciting. Um, I'm glad that I have Baker Mayfield and Jaden Daniels in one of my fantasy leagues. They've been rocking it for me for my quarterback numbers. So glad you gave him a little shout out there. Broncos defenses looked pretty good. Not allowing like pretty much any points at all. Winning with 10 points to the Jets 9 points was pretty interesting to say the least. Yeah.
Did you see Aaron Rodgers' face after that missed field goal with about a minute remaining?
Yeah.
Insanity, dude. That is crazy. But I mean, they were getting pressure, and it was like it was pretty impressive to see.
Mhm.
First topic on the list, the Ravens. I really like schematically what they're doing. Um, the only gripe I have with them is that Mark Andrews is not producing
Mhm.
Mark Andrews numbers or even approximately that. He's
Mhm.
just been like kind of phased out through their phase,
Yeah.
through their offense. But how they're utilizing Derrick Henry and the weapons around Lamar have been actually very
Mhm.
unique. And it didn't take turning Lamar into downward, like a pocket passer that throws constantly downfield. It took some unique plays. And once again, I'm on my Todd Monken rocking chair. The way they're setting up Henry and Lamar to get easy yardage and great quality offense is amazing to see. What are your thoughts on like watching them, especially like them dismantling the Bills?
Yeah, I mean, the Derrick Henry rushing yards is like the big storyline, right? And I think just like getting him going was really pivotal because you look at the first couple games of the year for them, and like later in the game, we kind of saw a little bit more step up from Derrick Henry, but like week one, he did not look good at all. Um, which obviously affected their ability to score and whatnot. But um, yeah, so I think it's just like their ability to get Derrick Henry, I guess, just like in his own rhythm, is going to be really pivotal for them throughout the rest of the season. And like, sure, Mark Andrews' numbers are down, and like, which which does stink. And like, there's a lot of question marks around it in regards to like how much of it is still like just lingering injury. Like he is an older player, so when an injury happens, like even if he is fully cleared and listed as 100%, like the lingering effects just naturally happen for some of these older players, and so that could be just the case with him. Which I don't like. It sucks, but also it's nice that they at least have Isaiah Likely in that tight end room that can at least open up the receiving game through that tight end position, because I think this last week I think Lamar and him connected for like a 30-ish yard gain or something like that, and like that was pretty nice. And then yeah, so but that's kind of just my thoughts on them.
Yeah, what stands out to me is getting Ricard to get like the key blocks to set up Derrick Henry to at least give him a
Mm-hmm.
crease. Because once Derrick Henry can pass the D lineman and like avoid like backfield hits,
Mm-hmm.
he is a tough man to stop. Like if
Mm-hmm.
he's got a slow motor like going across like the line of scrimmage, but once he passes that, it's almost like you unlock a new level of him.
Mm-hmm.
So like the key is to hit him at the line of scrimmage as much as you can
Mm-hmm.
and get him going sideways because then you can get that positive momentum buildup.
Mm-hmm.
The way the Ravens' offensive line is set up and Ricard, the way they're blocking, it makes it difficult to do that. And on top of that, the way they're utilizing Zay Flowers and the way they're utilizing play action to generate horizontal movement is what's allowing Derrick Henry to get vertical more easily
Mm-hmm.
because they're creating more gaps that way by stretching out the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And for Lamar's standpoint, like you have to key in on him. But even just a
Yeah.
simple like Zay Flowers and Nelson Aguilar, like going from like across like the sides in the formation is very pivotal. And we saw like there's a simple like rollout drop off pass to Justice Hill, and he got like 20 yards on one reception. And then they know when to call the screens on top of that. So it's like the simple stuff that allow Derrick Henry to like be a monster, Lamar to be a monster, and then open up like the deep shots when you're trying to cover all the horizontal action going on. The way Todd Monken has designed this is very impressive, and they have the players to be able to make this work. Now, the big question is, who's their go-to guy when it gets to 3rd and long, when it gets to 3rd and 10, when Derrick Henry cannot get going on the ground early in the downs?
Yeah.
Like, who do they go to? For me, that's either Zay Flowers or Mark Andrews. They got to find ways to get them involved. So when they're in those situations, they're not kind of like stuck in the mud and be like, well, Mark Andrews is not producing for us. And maybe that comes in the form of Isaiah Likely. But I think the next step and the only step for them to take is to find who that 3rd and 7 to 10, like who those guys are, who is going to step up when it's called upon in that situation. So, yeah, I've been really impressed with watching the Ravens ever since like week 3. They looked very impressive against Buffalo. And Buffalo's a great defense. Like, I know they lost a lot of players, but this is a team that just dismantled the Jaguars. Like, they are a quality team that I don't think a lot of people were seeing coming. And people were just giving their flowers to them. And that game was a lot closer than what the score will make it out to be. But the way the Ravens have designed this is something that I see being sustainable. It's a formula. It's their identity. Because they could build off multiple actions off of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Another team that was doing really well up until they ran into Detroit, Seattle. I think Kenneth Walker's headed towards a career year this year. Like 3 touchdowns in the game against Detroit. The way they're using Metcalf, the way they're making it a focal point to get JSN involved a lot. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Seattle. And Geno Smith is in for a top 10 year as well. Really love what Ryan Grubb's doing. I think it's kind of weird how they're like not really huddling and they're still like having the college offense where they're looking to sideline and everything like that. That worries me a little bit because once defenses pick up on their cues from the sideline and what their sideline calls are, then it's like, oh, what happens to their offense? That gets a little muddy to me. But I'm really impressed in the way they're designing this offense too. It's been really fun to watch. There's more like deep shot opportunities as well as like involvement for all their receivers, not just like DK and Lockett. I really love the way they're utilizing GSN this year. That's what I think the Seahawks are doing well. And then you look at their defense, like up until the injuries, they have very solid defensive depth. They know their players. They know how to utilize Quandre Diggs and Tariq Woolen really well. A lot to like about what the Seahawks are doing.
Yeah, and it's like you can knock them for a lot of things, I think, with that Detroit game, but like I think you can still pull in a lot of positives. Like it was smart of them, to hold Kenneth Walker out until he was healthy enough to play, because we kind of saw what he's able to do here. And then I also thought it was nice to see that when asked to do so, Geno Smith can just keep throwing the ball. It didn't really seem like there was too much like hesitation or like fatigue. I mean, outside of just natural football fatigue.
And he's making less mistakes too. Like he's doing a really good job taking care of the ball.
Yeah. And so I think that was really commendable just from that offense. And I think the offense will just continue to be a juggernaut throughout the season, regardless of, I guess, like injuries on the defense. And even on the offensive side, I think they do have pretty good depth, like just the fact that you have 3 solid wide receivers that you can go to is one thing. You got your weird random depth of middling tight ends, I guess, that can service you as needed to an extent. I don't know. But then you also have...
I really like AJ Barner. He's a guy I would keep your eye on. He's a guy that can do something. I'm not saying he's going to become like the number one option, but this guy on the 35 snaps he played, he ran 35 routes. He got 2 targets. Nothing crazy, but like he every time I watch him play, like I feel like he's gonna grow as the season goes along, and he's a guy like I would keep an eye on. And even Laviska Shenault, I had no idea he was on the Seahawks.
Yeah,
like he converted a key pivotal third down for them. Like they found ways to utilize their like non-star players on that team, and that's coaching. That's coaching for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and then kind of going on to more of that depth on the offense. I mean, like behind Walker, you do have Zach Charbonnet, who like he's not as explosive or elite as Walker is, and that's why Walker's the number one there, despite the same draft capital pretty much. But like when Walker was out, it wasn't really like their run game was holding them back or anything, and so I think that was just like another nice thing to be able to look at over the past couple of weeks with this team.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On the other team, on the other side, Monday night, the header reads Jared Goofball Goff goes for 18 of 18. I think you're underselling it, dude. It's almost like he caught a touchdown pass, his first ever. He's they say Detroit Lions snap count, Jared Goff 52 snaps, 1 route, 1 target, 2 carries. Man, that is hilarious. No, but just how rare is that to see a guy like I think he threw for like at least 250 yards. I think it was 259. Go for that much, stay perfect, and target deep down the field. Like that 70-yard touchdown throw to Jameson. Perfectly placed. It put him in a position to catch and run around Devon Witherspoon. Even though he was in the area, just the timing of it was impeccable. His deep targets down the field. He looked excellent.
Yeah, and like I remember last week I was talking about how like Jaden Daniels was putting up those Madden numbers where like the all Madden, difficulty where they like have like 3 incompletions or something, and it's like I'm like, this never happens in the NFL. What the heck? And then here we see again, Jared Goff goes 18 for 18, putting up this ridiculous stat alongside Jaden Daniels, who's pretty accurate too. But that's just crazy to think that the entirety of the game, basically, Jared Goff is out there, doesn't miss a single throw. And like, it's not just like a bunch of small checkdowns either that are like easy completions. Like you said, you got like the deep ball to Jameson Williams. And like, it's the way the Lions offense is, it's not built around like small checkdowns. It's like they got playmakers that can stretch the field, which I think makes this stat that much crazier.
Yeah, and I mean, it also helps when you have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs combining for 3 touchdowns and having the impact that they did on the game. Like, there's this one throw where David Montgomery, like, he takes a shot, like a literal shot out of a cannon by Devin Witherspoon. And most running backs, they just fall to the ground. Like, he just, like, shook it off, ran to the other side of the field, and, like, got, like, 50 yards on a catch. It was just madness. I was like, you never could make this up. And, like, it was just – like when you have those kind of talented players around you, it makes your job that much easier. And like Ben Johnson's been doing this for like 2 or 3 years now. Like he's got it dialed in on like how to use the aggressiveness of the defenses against them. So he's put in optimal positions to capitalize, and Jared Goff has taken advantage of that. Nothing to take away from that.
Yeah,
so, really impressed with him.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of Jaguars fans like hoping that Ben Johnson can be their next head coach and like hopefully just fix the offense of the Jaguars. And that just kind of it's crazy because this last offseason, there's a whole ton of talk about like, will Ben Johnson leave the Lions and become a head coach somewhere? And then he decided to stick around with the Lions, which obviously Lions fans are ecstatic for. And then the teams that were hoping for a new head coach are pretty bummed about. But yeah, it's a nice team.
Even their defense, like the one guy I'm worried about is Arnold because he can get a little bit handsy. Like he got called for a couple penalties against them, but their secondary clearly looks a lot different. Like they didn't have anybody that can get under receiver skin, and now adding Carlton Davis like completely flipped that. Like you could tell like DK was like paying like too much attention to his like matchups with like Carlton Davis more than on like just catching the ball and delivering. And DK got his at certain parts, but like now that Detroit has that on their team, it's like I get it. They combined for I think it was like what 45 like 29 or something like that. Like I get it. The score doesn't indicate that they do, but like Seattle went insane. Like the first half, it was like 21-3, like Detroit, and then Seattle just went like the next 3 possessions scoring touchdowns. Like they went off. So um, like I wouldn't say it's just an impediment against Detroit's defense for whatever reason. When these two teams match up, they're like averaging combined like 80 points or like 70 points sometimes. So it's like it's an automatic offensive slugfest. If there is something to be disappointed about, it's Mike McDonald's defense. But then again, they've had injuries, so like that's like explainable. This was like a great game to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Do you think it's time to throw in the towel with Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, I'm sure he has a lot of experience with towels, so it just might be the Browns offense like does have their moments, but like it's far and few between, I think, especially like just like how much you're paying Watson. It's another one of those Trevor Lawrence situations where you're paying game changer money. You invested so much into this move for your offense just to look super stagnant, and it's like what's next for them, especially just with like the contract that they're locked into right now. These contracts make a lot of people, I think, forget about the Russell Wilson contract, which I guess I'm thankful for. But yeah, it's just concerning because like I have him in one of my fantasy leagues, and I'm always like contemplating dropping him just because it's like he really doesn't like. I never start him. There's like I'm like he never has like a week where I'm like, oh man, like what a great week from Watson. He just lost to the Raiders of all teams, and like the Raiders are the Raiders. And and then you look back at last season and like
Devontae just because of the trade out of there. So it's
yeah. So fingers crossed. But yeah, it's like where do you draw the line with Deshaun Watson, especially because like last season you saw what Joe Flacco of all people was doing with this offense. They were competitors. They're right there in that playoff race. You looked at how Joe Flacco played this last week with the Colts. He comes in, he's just slinging it, balling out. And so it's like, why can't Deshaun Watson like just run a offense, like especially like after what we've seen from him. I know there's been talks about how like apparently when he was on the Texans, they ran like a very college similar Clemson type offense, which was easier for him to like understand. And like there's a chance that he just struggles to actually read defenses and go through his progressions and whatnot. But like, I don't know. It's confusing sometimes.
GFF actually graded him the highest route, like in that one last column. And I think Garrett being a little bit banged up has a lot to do with like how their defense fared. But it's like you are going against Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby, although I think Max Crosby got hurt a little bit in this game. I don't know what to make of this dude because with Watson, he was one of my favorite players. He was like my favorite player to watch at one time when he was on the Texans. Because I loved how he always kept the play alive and was always calm at the same time. And it was just a joy to watch him play. And I don't necessarily know why he hasn't been able to activate those parts of his game. And I think with this particular Browns team, they're missing Nick Chubb. Like Jerome Ford has been serviceable and admirable, but he's no Nick Chubb. Like if I were them, I would have tried to keep Kareem Hunt. I really would have. And it doesn't hurt that this. It does hurt that like the surrounding cast of like Jared Judy is not. I'm not the biggest fan of. Despite having so many receivers, they haven't been able to figure that part out. Besides Amari's been balling out, but
yeah,
with Deshaun, it's just he just got to get in a rhythm. Like it's the oddest thing. I feel like once he gets in a rhythm, he'll be okay. But it's like we know Kevin Stefanski's not a bad offensive coordinator because we've seen what he's been able to make, and it just I can't help but wonder where Baker is doing so well in Tampa, what he would have done with this Browns team if he was still on there. Like it's it's just hard to compare them both because Deshaun hasn't been able to find a rhythm, and you don't know if that's going to come soon or if that's never going to come. That's the most difficult part about looking at this.
Yeah, because I'm like curious to see how like Jameis Winston would function in this offense. Where it's like if these like Watson hasn't gone over 200 pass yards in a game this season so far. His closest, being 196 yards against the Giants, but then that is also against the Giants. But then you look at like the games that they've played, or like the Cowboys is arguably like the difficult game that they did. But then you got the Jaguars who haven't won a game, and he put up 186 yards, 0 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, just whatever, I guess. The Giants, 196 pass yards with 2 touchdowns, no picks, which I'd argue is probably his best game of the season, maybe of the past, like his entire tenure with the Browns. And then this most recent week against the Raiders, 176 pass yards with a touchdown and an interception. I didn't include any of the rushing touchdowns he's had because I think he had 1 against the Giants maybe, but like I'm just curious to see it, like how much of the issue is Deshaun Watson. Like I feel like a big part of it is like we've talked about, just because we've seen Joe Flacco function well, and so it's like, what if you just like threw in Jameis Winston for a game, and like if he balls out, like I think you just got to cut your loss with Deshaun Watson because like he's 29 years old. How like it's hard to imagine how much better he can become at this stage in his career as well. When most times quarterbacks, like there's a few anomalies like Geno Smith, of course, but like it's just kind of hard to see how he improves from what he's doing right now.
If you're the Browns, what do you do? Because you look at his contract status and you look at like what's come out of it. Like, would you ride the wave with him, like long term, or would you like start preparing for like a rookie quarterback now?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's just hard to like be patient. How many years does he have left on his contract? Like,
let's take a look. I know he's had a lot of money owed to the organization. So he signed a 5 year.
Yeah, he becomes unrestricted free agent in 2027. So he plays through the 2026 year. So that's like what, 2 more seasons? Like, are the Browns really just willing to commit to this for 2 more years?
They have a $73 million cap hit in 2025 and 2026 each. So that's what 144 to 146 $1 million cap hit.
Yeah,
that's like if I were them, I would start preparing because this rookie class is looking to be really, really good. I would invest in one of these guys, like invest in the Shador, invest in like Nussmeier. Like when he comes, it depends on what year you're trying to grab him at. Like Viola might be too early. Dylan Gabriel, I'm not sure when he's coming out. Like and Jalen Milroe, like these guys are all looking. Maybe not Carson Beck after the first like 3 quarters how he looked, but I think you got to take a stab at one of these guys and let them sit. Like this is the perfect environment to let one of these guys sit and like start when Deshaun like runs his contract out, because he can't just trade it to another team because you lose it anyway. So it's like start preparing for the rookie now and then try and bridge that gap. Like I know you're losing like rookie years and it's like you could have had it like after Deshaun, but it's like your organization might not have that luxury to be able to do that now. Because if Deshaun Watson's gone, you try to bring in a rookie, Stefanski might get fired. Barry might get fired too. And I love Andrew Barry. I love his draft decisions and what he's done in this regime. It's been amazing to watch. And I love Stefanski's schematics, but it's tough for me to justify even being a fan of Deshaun Watson at one point. Like it's tough for me to justify and say like, okay, just keep the status quo. Like if it were me, I'm less inclined to give up on quarterbacks even if they're performing mediocre because I'm like, okay, we got to build like an unfair advantage on offense, like outside of quarterback. So it's that receiver. Technically, they had that at running back, but like Nick Chubb suffered a horrific injury, and now he's not there anymore. So they have to pivot. So if I were them, I would just try to find another QB and build the talent around in the offense. Continue to do that. So that way, even if Deshaun stinks, you have somebody you can turn to. You have a backup. Because if he just stinks up the joint, now you're in rebuild mode with an elite defense like that. Like that's you're just gonna waste away that defense by the time the offense gets together. It's like just plan for it right now that you're gonna take a rookie and it's gonna take time to develop. Because it's not working out.
Yeah, but like what's crazy is like even the offense is serviceable. It's just like because I mean we look at it again last season. Nick Chubb was out like majority of the season last year, right? But like when Joe Flacco was there playing football, like sure he had a ton of interceptions. I wasn't the biggest fan of that, but the offense was able to drive down the field. He would still put up 2 to 3 touchdowns a game with like 250 plus yards on like the average it feels. And so it's like you get a guy who can at least just run the offense getting like 200 yards a game on average. And I think that all of a sudden the Browns are back in that playoff race compared to now watching them with Deshaun Watson. Like, and so it's like really like I know a lot of teams feel this way that they are a quarterback away from winning, but like Browns really do feel like they're in a position like that. And like you said, you can't really waste away their defense just because they got guys starting to get older, even like on the offense. So you look at like Amari Cooper, he's like 31 right now, and it's like, how many more good years do you have out of Amari Cooper when he's done with the team or retires or starts to regress? It's like, is Jerry Jeudy really going to be your guy with like Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman as your like 2 and 3? I mean, I like them, but like they still haven't really shown me that they can be top dogs in the NFL, you know? So like I feel like if like again, I'm a fan of putting in Jameis Winston just to seeing like can he manage this offense and give them in like get him into playoff contention, because then if let's say you know like Jameis Winston he's putting up 250 plus let's say he has like a Joe Flacco-esque season this year, you know, I feel like you can commit to that for the next like 2 to 3 years, thinking you get that same type of play from Jameis Winston, and then you can invest those draft picks into other skill positions to replenish the receiver room, you know, get more depth at your edge rushers and whatnot, rather than having to work on developing a quarterback.
I agree. Yeah, that's another approach you can take, man. Yeah, I want to jump off the subject as soon as possible because it's bad. Alrighty, who is your? I can go first. Give you time to look at the schedule.
Yeah.
Who's your upset of the week? For me, I think it might be cheating, given that we've seen the ups and downs, but not really because they're going against the defending champs. I think the Saints are going to give the Chiefs their first loss this season. I think their offense can keep up. For me, the only worry I have is their defense. How well can the defense stand up? Because like losing Atlanta like that, that's rough. Like Atlanta's a good barometer for like KC, and we just seen Atlanta like hang around with KC for a while. But if it were me, I would probably pick the Saints here this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm like, how many upsets can I even like envision happening? It seems like it's another week of good versus good and bad versus bad. Like I'm kind of inclined to go with your route too with the Saints and Chiefs. But like I mean, like, where's this game? We got
Jets and Vikings. I was thinking about.
uh-huh.
I was also thinking about the Jags and the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know if that's really an upset with Joe Flacco playing. Well, Richardson might. I don't know. It's up in the air there.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, like, I could envision maybe the Rams beat the Packers, but like, I wouldn't really necessarily call it an upset. Like, I feel like they're similarly tiered teams, but like the Rams have more substantial injuries, and so
Yeah.
an upset could happen there. I think, as like Jordan Love's still getting back to 100%, I guess, but that's kind of what I think.
I would consider that because the Rams look wildly different without Cooper Kupp and who is it? Puka Nacua. So I mean, that's valid. That's valid. Alrighty, guys. That's it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give us a follow on our Instagram page, amon.a.mission. You could also follow us at Amon Mission on YouTube. That's where we upload our full-length episodes. And hope you enjoy the match Thursday. First London game this year. You're going to see the Packers go against the Jets go against the Vikings. I was thinking Packers when I'm thinking Aaron Rodgers still not But you guys have a good week. We'll see you next week with our recaps on what happens in week 5. But till then, take care.
Peace. Yeah.